I was baptized yesterday, and I suppose now I'm considered a full Catholic, as opposed to a catechumen. And I already talked about my conversion story, so I suppose I won't talk on that today. But I just want to express this point in my life, which is very important. I assume that this is going to be very important to my growth as an individual. I feel different at the very least, or I felt different in this last day and a half that I've been baptized. And usually when I go through some very important moment in my life, most of the time it's written down in my personal notebook, and I express it, and I talk about how, hey, this is what's been happening, or even this is how it feels to be in my current circumstance. This is how I'm feeling at the current moment, because it's written to myself. So the assumption is that I already know what's happened, right? And every time I find that I have a great deal of growth in this, and I think that writing down one's personal thoughts is an extremely beneficial endeavor compared to most hobbies. You know, there's a million, billion, trillion self-help books out there in the world, but not one of them is addressed for you unless you choose to go out and you choose to write one, because no one's gonna write you a personal letter, a personal 250-page essay on how you can improve as an individual, including your own personal thoughts and feelings. If you did, well, clearly you have some great friend in your life, right? But I don't think most of us have that. I think that actually nearly none of us have that, in fact. And every time I sit down and I write and I say, wow, this is the mental health problem I've been going through. This is the discipline problem I've been going through. This is this and that. It always helps me not only discover myself, not only properly understand myself to a higher degree, but it also helps me, I suppose, work through problems and actually learn how to think through problems. One of the most common quotes that I have in my writings is, "I'm not sure." You know, I ask myself a question out of that, right? That's a good question. I don't know. Let's talk about it, right? And in this, I'm going through an adventure with myself, who's the reader, trying to solve this moral dilemma. So most of the time I don't actually know what this story is gonna end as. And also I think I write extremely vaguely in this story. Not story even. Well, I guess it's the story of my life in a way. It's only 40 something pages long at this point. I haven't been doing it. I've only been doing it for a month and a half, right? And I don't even know what to say. I just think that I've become a much better person. It's helped me navigate stories and my storms that have happened in my life, ripples that have happened in my life. So I don't really have much of a point to make today, just like these writings. But I think that in trying to flip through these pages and in trying to look into your own heart, you begin to understand yourself and to help heal from whatever has happened in your life, no matter how big or small. These darkest points in your being that make up who you are on the inside, they can be healed in this way. And I think the same thing can be expressed through creative writing, I imagine, at least. But then other people can read it and other people can find relation in that in these struggles that you have. You can write a story about someone who has little motivation, or someone who who feels incredibly unfulfilled in this modern day and age. And I think that would be that would resonate incredibly with people around the world, because I think that's one of the largest problems in this day and age: the lack of film fulfillment, and at least the lack of obvious things to find fulfillment in. You know, 20, 30,000 years ago, you can find fulfillment in your caveman wife or your caveman husband. Well, I guess cave woman. And you can find fulfillment in going out collecting grain, or maybe you and the boys just killed a deer. Congrats, celebrate, party about this. Grug 1 through 4 might have died during this little excursion, but I think that's all right, because in the end you got the food. So when you have something greater to suffer for, some overarching life purpose that is at that point simply surviving as long as you can and protecting your children, I suppose, that you were suffering for this, and in this you'd be fulfilled. I haven't read much Dostoevsky. I've read about 40 pages of notes from the underground, but I think that he would resonate with this plenty. But now, at least in the Western world, where we're far from places that are starving, who have droughts or the whatnot, I think we struggle to find any sort of fulfillment, to go out and to struggle for something greater. And maybe in part, this is why I became Christian in the first place. I certainly hadn't been thinking of it at the time when I was, 12 or 13, and I decided randomly to become Christian. But maybe subconsciously, at an existential level, my body knew, my inner conscious knew that if I choose to live a life where I can live full of pleasures without any corresponding pains, then I can live without any sort of fulfillment, because I don't have any reason to struggle in the first place. So I think my greatest piece of advice, at least at this current moment, that isn't political or intellectual in any capacity, would be to suffer for something. Try to do something that is greater than yourself. Something that you can cling to in your deepest, darkest moments. And something that when you look into your own personal abyss, when you look into these darkest, most intimate points of yourself, will be able to illuminate your being. And maybe monsters in the dark, in your dark, might just be a little less scary. That's about it.